and spring semester is typically focused on creatures and characters. So this particular course I'm planning to run the environment version on because we're in Japan, so we can really kind of focus on their architecture and all of that kind of fun, more architectural space-focused designs. So I just kind of wanted to get that out of the way right to begin with. It is it's run as a concept art course, so that's kind of the focus. We do a little bit in the very beginning just about the fundamentals of painting in a digital format, and then after that we get into design. So questions, feel free to fire away. You can raise your hand or you can just type if you want to just type into the chat. Or are they allowed to use their mics?
Yeah, they can definitely use their mics. I would suggest doing raise a hand just so we don't have multiple people talking at once. So we can get clear questions and answers.
Okay, so if you want to use your mic, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll tell you when to unmute. So please only unmute if I've called your name. So go ahead. Audra, I believe I see your name up or your hand up.
Yeah, what would general cost be for a trip like this?
I believe the cost last I saw was just slightly over 5,000. We'll have to, since this is, I was planning on running it this wind term. So we had the pricing for this wind term. It was about 5,100 something, if I'm remembering correctly. Since we have to kind of delay it by 1 year, we would need to go through our agents again and reprice everything, but I would assume it would be similarly priced.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. There should be, Riley, there should be a link, at least I hope there's a link on the OIE website that you can get to. Maybe that's a question that Jasa could maybe field a little bit better than I can.
Yeah, definitely. So if you go to the Study Abroad website, they have a little section there for faculty-led programs. That's where you can find all the information for cost, what the itinerary would be like, and that's where you find all that information. Otherwise, we do have advisory sessions throughout the day today. If you have specific questions regarding the program, we can answer them that way as well.
Thank you, Jasa. Daniel's asking, this trip would still be taking place during wind term, right? Yes, so I am planning on this being wind term 2022. So not this wind term, but next year over January.
Do we have any other kinds of questions? Maybe some specific things for Kimberly to answer of what you possibly would be doing or what they have done in the past, places you go, things you'd see, anything like that. You can raise your hand or go in the chat box and we can answer it that way.
I can talk a little bit about the planned itinerary as well, if anybody's interested in that. And again, it's still kind of up for debate because, again, this is still being kind of repriced and whatnot for the next year. She'll ask, is it possible to participate despite not being enrolled in the course or have completed it in the past? So you will be, in order to kind of go on the study abroad, you will be enrolling in it as the study abroad experience, and it will automatically, like, it's connected to that course DES 321. So you'll be enrolled in the course as you are enrolled in the study abroad. So they're kind of the same thing. if you have or have not completed it in the past. DS321 is a repeatable course. You can take it twice. So if you've taken it once, you can technically take it again. If you've taken the environment version already, I still think that potentially you could do this again anyway. If you're not interested in doing the character version, or if you just really want to experience Japan and get that under your belt, essentially. So I do think it would still be an option for you. If you wanted to take it as like an extra type of thing, like you've taken it, it's required for your major, but you still want to go on this trip, you might have to talk to your advisor on that. I think it might be potentially, you might be able to run it as like a DES selective in your program plan, but you'll definitely want to maybe ask your advisor about that and double check. Dan asks, how big of a group would you estimate would be on the trip? That kind of depends. We had a fairly enthusiastic response for the trip that I had initially planned. I don't think I will go over probably 15 students, because if we go over that, I might low-key start panicking a little. But yeah, that's my plan. The first steps to signing up for this trip. Jason, would you like to answer that one? Because you'll have to go through the office.
Yeah, definitely. So depending upon how many semesters you have under your belt, that would determine if that plays a factor or anything like that. We also have an advisor, Chella, in the call right now. There is a link for more information on this program, which you can find at our UW-Stout.studioabroad.com. They kind of like Kimberly said, they're trying to finalize costs for winter term of 2022, just with everything with COVID. But you would come into the office and we can go over the first steps of what to do, how to sign up, make sure you get the credits and stuff like that.
Hey guys, I just was popping in between different sessions. So did you have any other questions I could answer while I'm here? Okay.
Yep, Shu, you're correct on that. The initial plan was to be in Japan 10 days. It gets kind of squiffy with travel because we're going on the other side of the world. But yeah, it's slightly over a week that we would be on the ground in Japan. And that includes, the initial plan, and I assume we'll follow something quite similar for winter, is that we'll be landing, and then the first portion of our time there will be in Tokyo, so that we get a chance to really kind of see, that heavily industrialized and modern city that Tokyo is. We'll see some of the kind of the big known sites in Tokyo, Shibuya, Shinjuku, some of the more residential places if we can get there. So that's part of the Tokyo side of things. And then we would go down to Kyoto for a couple days to see some of the more traditional structures, their shrines and temples. So we'll get a couple days down there, and then I think we need to return to Tokyo for our flight outwards. Thank you, Shella.
So for the students, if you don't have the chat pulled up, our advisor, Chella, just said that the priority deadline for the student applications is May of 2021, and then the final deadline for the application is going to be October 15th of 2021. So if you are planning on doing this, I'd suggest, trying to figure it out with your program advisor or anything like that to make sure everything's all set. Do we have any other questions for Kimberly with the trip? Things that they've done in the past that, you know, you may be interested in doing, or just hearing stories, something along the lines. Anything would be helpful for students to be interested in doing this.
I mean, I could talk about the subways. Because that's probably the most intimidating part in going to Japan is the subway system and learning the trains. Now you'll be with me, or well, with me and possibly also potentially a coordinator from our agent will be there at some days, and so there shouldn't be any real issue with trying to figure out how to get around. So we should be able to just kind of help you. Elizabeth asks, how much money would you usually recommend bringing with us if we decide to go? So part of the package that you get, like a part of the information overall, will include like a spending money like stipend, if you will. So I would just wait until you kind of get that information, because it will be pretty cut and dry, but unfortunately I don't remember the exact numbers on it. The itinerary, hold on, I can actually pull that open. Give me a second. Mm-hmm. So let's see. So again, the dates will be a little bit shuffled because we'll be in a new year, but somewhere in first, second-ish week of January, and again, the dates are a little squiffy, but we would be arriving in Japan probably in the afternoon in local time. The flight's pretty long. It's about a 13-hour flight, if I'm remembering correctly, somewhere between 13 and 14 hours. So we'll arrive there. We'll probably be pretty tired, so we're just going to kind of, from the airport, go to the hostel, where we would have some sort of kind of welcome dinner, a little bit of an orientation hosted by our, by the travel agents within Japan. So, and that would be pretty much be all that we would do that day. After that, we would visit a couple places around Tokyo the next day. So we'll hit up Ueno and Ueno Park, which includes the Tokyo National Museum, which is a pretty neat place, and they have a lot of really cool artifacts and things from history. So we'll head there. We'll hit up the Tokyo Sky Tree after lunch. The next day would be I'd like to take you all to somewhere a little bit more suburban, get some residential kind of experience to look at what it looks like when you're out of heavy city, and a little bit more. It's still city. It's definitely very city, but it has a little bit more of that kind of personal feel because it's a little more residential focused. And then the afternoon would be a tour of Shinjuku. Let's see, the next day after that, I had a trip to, I would allow students to kind of decide on the floor. I had a couple locations within Tokyo that we could go to, either downtown near the Imperial Palace, or we could go for a different area that I know has some really huge skyscrapers. So that would be something where, you know, students, you have a little bit of a voice into exactly which way we want to go. Unfortunately, we can't split, so it would be down to a vote because I don't have enough people to split the group in half. But we'd be able to do that, and then after that, go to Shibuya, which also, at least in our old itinerary, included a visit to the Pokemon Center. and to Nintendo Tokyo. The day after that, morning would be a little bit free. I figured we'd take that one a little easy because we've been going almost since we got there, and jet lag might be hitting a little, so a little bit easier of a morning to kind of rest up a little bit, and in the afternoon would be our trip down to Kyoto. The train trip is about 2 to 2.5 hours. So once we get there, we get another orientation from our coordinator and a walking tour of the immediate area around the hostel. So that would kind of just be all we would do that day. The next day would be a trip to a few of the locations in Kyoto. Kinkakuji, Ryoanji. I'd like to hit up the Kyoto Manga Museum for those who are comics students and might be interested in that. Afternoon, I would like to visit another area that I really particularly like, which is Kiyomizudera. And it has a neighboring shrine right next to it that I forget the name of, but I'd like to hit up those. The day after that would be a walking tour of Gion, which is a very well-known street that's kept in kind of the very old traditional style in Kyoto, where a lot of movies have been shot. So that would happen there. And you could have an optional workshop if you feel like decorating a yukata. And then the afternoon would be another location like called Kawaramachi Street. And then at that night, we'd actually hopefully be able to stay at a ryokan, which is a traditional Japanese hotel. We'd be sleeping on the futons on the floor. Potentially, there could be the option to try out a hot spring. So in the afternoon, or sorry, that night, we'd be staying there. We'd be eating there. So it would be definitely a little bit more traditional dinner. The next day, in the morning, I'd like to hit up maybe just one more kind of big shrine that I know of called Heian Jingu. It's very famous. And then after that, we'd head over back to the train station because we need to get back to Tokyo. So we'd probably get lunch somewhere close to that train station and then head back to Tokyo. The next day after that, we just have, kind of a little bit of an easier day. Morning, there's a Team Lab Borderless Digital Art Museum, which I believe has some animation stuff in there. And then afternoon, maybe a walking tour of Akihabara for those who have things they want to buy. And then the next day after that would just be returning back to the US. So, you're welcome, Riley. Have a good day. But yeah, that was the rundown that was the plan for if it had run this winter. That was my itinerary. Obviously, there might be some changes, some minor adjustments for this next winter.
We do have a few minutes left. If there's any other questions, you can raise your hand or type in the chat box for us.
If anyone's curious about me as well, like I lived in Japan for 3 years. I do know the language to a degree. So if things do happen, I can understand at least to a certain extent. I'll probably get better when I'm there, kind of like riding a bike. It's been a couple years since I've been there, but I was fluent when I lived there. So with regards to that, at least you don't have to worry too much about me being able to tell what's going on. Of course, you being able to tell what's going on is definitely a different question, but most of the places we'll be in, Tokyo and Kyoto, are pretty good with having English on their signage, if nothing else, so that you should be able to kind of navigate where you need to go at any rate. In Kyoto, almost every store I went to when I visited had someone who understood English and could talk to you. Tokyo, I never really tried but I would assume is much the same. Any questions? I don't know. What do you want to talk about? So it is still taking the class. So Cheng Foa asks, so it's not like taking a class, but more like a tour. So it is definitely going to include a lot of touring aspects. And hopefully as we do the tours, some of the ones that are a little bit easier, where it's just like one location, I might have you spreading out with a sketchbook or with a piece of paper and doing some study sketches of the architecture while you're there. The main purpose within the course of visiting Japan is the study aspect of being able to sit there and study the architecture, study the space, and how they utilize the space. Taking photos is definitely a big part of that, and I hope you all take photos as well. Before we go to Japan, I'll be teaching some fundamentals of digital painting and going through that with you. Then once after we're back from Japan, we're going to be taking all of that study that we did while there, and we'll be formulating concept art based on it. Some sort of small space, a medium-sized, like an interior space, and then an external space. So the course is definitely still there. But while we're in Japan, it's going to be focused on the study aspect and not the creation aspect as much. So, and Jacob, we're right at the end. I think we have a couple minutes left. Because Jacob asks if the meeting is almost over.
This meeting is recorded too, so if you guys want to go back over anything, we'll have a section where we put all of our live session feeds to be able to rewatch them for anything.
And hi, this is Andrea Morse. I'm from the Study Abroad office. Hi, Kimberly, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, thank you for presenting today. And so I work in the Study Abroad office, so if anyone has any application questions or financing questions or anything, you can feel free to ask. You can also, after the session is done at 2:15, but if you'd like to pop over to the Ask an Advisor virtual booth, excuse me, we're there until 10 p.m. tonight. Or you can also book a virtual appointment with us through the bookings link, which is noted in our website, the Canvas platform for the fair. We can also email us at studyabroad@uwstout.edu, and we're happy to help you out.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, and I just give a shout out to Japan. It's amazing. I lived there for a year and I absolutely loved it. And I lived in the Kansai region outside of Osaka, and it's beautiful.
Oh, so you got the Osaka bed.
Yeah. I was actually down a couple hours by public transportation in Wakayama-ken, in a very small little village. It was a really, really cool experience, though. Japan's amazing.
It is. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait to finally get back there again. I've been wanting for a while.
Excellent. That'll be great. So if we don't have any other questions, Jason might be able to stop the recording, and we can certainly, hang on until until 2:15, which is just a few more minutes, and students can depart if they wish, or if you have any questions. I think maybe you'll be around for a few more minutes, Kimberly.
Yep, I can stick around till 2:15.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for popping by, Andrea.